Greetings, everyone. Okay, for you Bob Dylan fans that have been sticking around here, I'm going to be talking about, as you can tell here, I'm doing something Christmas related. Now, I know I feel a little bit past, the month or whatever. It was Christmas in July, and yeah, and for some of you folks that enjoy, that kind of thing, I know the Hallmark Channel always plays those one-off Christmas, in July, but Christmas one-off movies or whatever. They're kind of, on the low budget. They're kind of a little romantic, a little bit, you know, they have that kind of, cheesiness to it. But yeah, I'm gonna actually be doing now. I know I could have waited till December, to actually do the album I'm gonna be talking about, which is Bob Dylan's Christmas in the Heart. Yeah, I know I don't have the book with me or whatever. Um, I don't know. I was listening to it, and it's funny to really realize, just to realize how odd to really think that Bob Dylan doing a Christmas album out of all things, And there was a promotional video, in fact, with him doing "Here Comes Santa Claus," and he looks like a drunken buffoon. If you know, to me personally, I really think Bob Dylan struggles, and especially when it comes to something like Holiday or whatever, or something seasonal like this, And many were claiming this is one of the most worst things that Dylan ever had done in his career since Self Portrait, and not really. I actually really love Self Portrait, and if I had to either listen to the two all the way all the way Self Portrait. I wouldn't even bother to even listen or even re-listen to this album, whatever. Now the album cover is actually, I actually kind of like it. It's a little bit like a Christmas card. It basically looks like an old Hallmark, a little bit post-war kind of. You got the people on the sleigh or whatever. I'll probably post on the thumbnail here. Once you see the video, and it actually looks nice, and I like the back cover too. We got the three kings on the back, and it's interesting. Now this was shortly after the Together Through Life album that I kind of like. Okay, there's a lot of people that kind of not care for it or whatever. They think it's a little bit not on the level of, and to me it's definitely not. Definitely not on the level of Modern Times, and that was kind of the end there. Yeah, that was definitely the big trilogy there of his comeback. Definitely was the Time Out of Mind, and the Love and Theft and the Modern Times or whatever. But yeah, this came out in October of 2009, so just pretty much towards the end there of that year, and basically 8 months or 7 months after Together Through Life, and he struggles here. He does songs like, of course, "Here Comes Santa Claus." Now there was a song, I don't know if it was written by him or it was somebody else, whatever, an original Christmas song that wasn't, that nobody else kind of did. I think he was just the only one that did it. But he does some of the traditional songs. He does sleigh bells or silver bells or whatever. And I really think most people didn't really take this, or at least with Dylan, however, didn't take it too seriously. And that's the thing with Dylan. You never know what you never know what he's going to do. This is always something on the end of the spectrum, kind of. And I really, it was a bit of a struggle to listen to it, and to me, I'm just not big into it, and I'm not really, and that's the thing with a lot of big celebrity stars or whatever, the do Christmas, and not really, it doesn't turn out that well. You got, what's his name? Michael Bublé. I mean, I like Michael Bublé, okay, but it's nice and whatever. I feel like to me, it's just not Christmas. The real Christmas. And I'm kind of one of the people that actually kind of like some of the big Christmas, kind of the big ones that are a little bit overplayed, but like I love Percy Faith, and I love I like trying to think who else, Ray Conniff or whatever, and I like trying to think who else, even the Jackson Five. I like the Christmas album that they did, But I feel like to me, I kind of I am somewhat uh, a little bit objective when it comes to Christmas music, a little bit, or subjective or whatever. And not really much to say. It's like this album really, I like the bass okay, and his cover of "Little Town of Bethlehem's" actually kind of all right. And but whew, that "Here Comes Santa Claus," God, that is just way too, way too overboard, And or even the Dylan, the self-titled, the unsanctioned album, I love way more than this "Christmas in the Heart," But at the end of the day, they're actually holding three Christmas music here that I really enjoy, possibly the most, And me with loving Johnny Mathis. I mean, just Sounds of Christmas can't top that, or and even his first Christmas album. And another person, a top-notch guy that just sings Christmas music perfectly, Andy Williams, of course, And probably my favorite, you know, out of all is probably, the, holding the VHS tape here, but the Charlie Brown, the music from from the TV special. Yeah, Bob Dylan, you cannot shine the shoes, or the Christmas in the Heart cannot shine the shoes out of these three right here. These are my favorite things I love listening to when it comes time for Christmas. And I was actually listening to a couple of some Christmas music a little bit. That touches me. But with listening to Bob Dylan doing Christmas, it just doesn't seem to, what I mean? It doesn't sell the person. It doesn't really sell me. It doesn't seem to really, it doesn't really deliver me to, or it doesn't seem to deliver the right spirit, like with Johnny Mathis, with him doing, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, or Andy Williams doing, you know, you know, oh come you faithful, and and Bob Dylan again, he does the Christmas song. That was a bit of a struggle, but I do like the Little Town of Bethlehem. A couple, like the old traditional, like the old Christmas. He kind of does well, but with some of like the like the Irving Berlin and even stuff kind of pushing into the 50s and all that, it just doesn't come off genuine. It just sounds like he's pushing it, he's struggling, and even just his haggard vocals. It just, Bob Dylan doing a holiday album out of all things, it just doesn't seem to. It just doesn't seem to sell me, and it just doesn't seem to be as well. Just not really as good. It's pretty mediocre. If you think about it. Yeah, I mean, and even when you listen to Charlie Brown, I even got the vinyl record. I didn't bring it up, but just the music on here is just perfect. But again, what can I say? I'm not, as you can tell here, just by me talking about, me. Not you can see that I don't really care too much about Christmas in the Heart. It's just definitely not good. It's just kind of just not really a big fan of it. But anyways, up next though, of course, he comes back strong. Of course, with Tempest, what a big album, and I can't wait to review that. And we're getting close to the end. We're and of course the crooner albums he was doing there after that, and then of course his last big album, Now I know he did the Shadow Kingdom thing. I'm not gonna probably talk about that. They'll probably talk about the live albums, because I haven't touched on the live albums yet for him. But actually, technically, I did with the bootlegs. I have covered the Manchester Freed and the 1964 thing or whatever, where he's with Joan Baez or whatever. But yeah, that's about it. Christmas in the Heart, just don't really seem to care too much of it. When it comes down to Christmas music, my favorite are definitely these three right here, no matter what. All right, folks, talked enough. Okay, till then, and if you're watching this in December, hey, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Okay, folks, bye.